Today's episode is brought to you by the Hippocratic Collective. Check out our shows and join the conversation at thehippocratic-collective.com. Hello, I'm Joan. I'm a Canadian family physician who also works as a restorative medical educator, facilitator, and coach. I create spaces that rehumanize the work of healthcare. I'm creating this podcast to remind myself, as well as anyone else working in a helping profession, that when you are working and caring for your human patients, you are the other human in the room. Hello there, healthcare humans. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of The Other Human in the Room. This is, definitely my most long distance healthcare human conversation. I'm like scanning back. No, yes. I have never spoken to someone from as far away geographically as me, and that is very exciting. I'll just say the way that I got connected to Ryan was through the Hippocratic Collective, and just so exciting what's happening there, meeting more people who are in healthcare, physicians, but also have a deep interest in creativity and expressing that creativity, and have already gotten to have such great conversations with folks who hold both of those as parts of their identity. And so very interested to hear from you, Ryan. The Coles notes that I got from Francis May when they first introduced it, he's a family physician and he's in Russia at an embassy and he does graphic novels and he designs for a luggage company. And I was
That's right.
I have so many follow-up questions I better have on the podcast.
That's right. That's right.
So please, Ryan, I pre-introduced you, but you fully introduce yourself.
No, that sounds great. First of all, I have to say thank you for having me on. Welcome, fellow healthcare human as well. We met through Frances May Harden, and she gave an intro of me, of my background to a number of people, and I was like, Frances May, you got to be my agent because this sounds good. It makes me sound super exciting and what's going on, a little bit of intrigue and stuff like that. Just a little bit of information, but not too much, so they have to come back and ask more questions. And really, this is a bid for me to get more friends because I don't have too many. So this is good. I can slowly build this audience. But my name is Dr. Ryan Montoya. As you mentioned, I'm a family medicine doctor. And I also have professions in comic books, and I'm also a luggage designer and luggage design consultant for the company Goyard. And I'm in Russia right now because my wife and I live and travel overseas. She's a diplomat for the State Department, the U.S. State Department, and so we live at different posts, either embassies or consulates around the world. And I get to practice medicine usually and do some artwork while she works as a foreign service officer or a diplomat. So really, it sounds like I'm this adventurer. I'm going around exploring things, but frankly, we decide where to go, but it's based on my wife Maria's career, and I just follow along.
I mean, you get to think that that's glamorous and exciting for
I
sure.
love it. I love it. And, I'm reaping all the benefits of it because, the State Department life, the diplomat life for U.S. diplomats is very, very good. There are some challenges, certainly, but really the payoff is great. The biggest thing is, we don't really have very many living expenses. The rent is paid for. Generally, where we're going, it's cheaper than living in the United States. So getting to explore all these things and being able to travel often on the government's dime, it's not a bad deal. Don't let any diplomat tell you that they're struggling or whatever. I mean, there's some tough posts, but it's good. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. So where have you gotten to practice medicine and live so far?
So far, we've been posted in the country of Bosnia-Herzegovina and this city called Banja Luka. It's in the northern part of Bosnia-Herzegovina. We've also lived in India for 2 years. We lived in Mumbai, but we also spent some time in Bangalore in the south of India. We went back to DC for a few years, and then this is our third post overseas. This is Russia. So we've been here for about 3 years, but we're actually rounding out our time here. So we're going to be here till the end of June, and then our next post is Belgrade, Serbia. So kind of heading back to the Balkans, heading back to former Yugoslavia, and this is my wife's wheelhouse. She's and she will not tell you this, she's an expert in this area, did her master's on this area, she speaks the language fluently, so it does feel in a sense like we're returning home a little bit.
cool. I was gonna
Yeah.
ask about the language piece. Do
Yeah.
you speak any of these languages or?
Okay. I'm a survivor. Okay. You throw me anywhere, I'll mine my way out of it. Okay. But
Nice.
I will say that when we were living in Bosnia Herzegovina for 2 years, I was conversational on a very basic level. I could get around without my wife, go to the stores, travel a little bit on my own. So that's the extent of it. I'm not going to be, reading dissertations
Yeah.
or anything like that. With Russia and with Russian, because we are living on the embassy compound, it became a little bit more isolated, and so I was able to speak with more Americans, and because of that, my efforts at learning Russian were pretty stunted. But when you're in posts where you're not surrounded all by Americans, and you're out able to live a little bit more in the community, you're forced, in a good way, to learn the language a little bit more. So my hope is when we go to Serbia, I'll pick up my Serbo-Croatian again and maybe get a little bit better. So we'll see. Fingers
Nice.
crossed.
Because
Yeah.
that's a common language between those two
Yeah,
places. Yeah.
all of former okay. I don't want to start another war here. Okay, what I'll say is this: in former Yugoslavia, a number of the countries speak Serbo-Croatian. It's a
Okay.
very similar language among the countries with different pronunciations here and there, different words. But then there are some exceptions. So, for instance, Slovenia, which is part of former Yugoslavia, has its own language.
Yeah.
Some of the people who are older speak Serbo-Croatian, but some speak just Slovenian, which is very different. So different kind of exceptions, but overall, most of that former Yugoslavia area speak Serbo-Croatian.
Okay. And so then for you as a physician,
Yeah.
are your patients folks from the embassy or your patients folks from like that country you're living in?
So it's mostly Americans and people from either the embassy or people who are like Americans visiting the country. Now, we typically don't have very many Americans visiting the country right now in Russia.
Yeah.
I will sometimes have local patients. So when I was living in India, I was the physician for this really lovely school in Bangalore called Shanti Bhavan, which treated this population. They were formerly called the untouchable population or delete population.
Nice.
And this school basically took care of these kids from kindergarten all the way through the end of college and paid for everything. And so I got to act as a school physician there, and that's local population, obviously. But that said, in a lot of the places in India we went, they all spoke English. The English fluency was just off the charts in India. It was fantastic and really surprising.
Oh. And is that like, do you have to find your own job or is that part of the deal each
It
place you go?
So it's a little bit part of the deal. So I'll say this: the old style. When I say old style, I mean the 1970s, 1980s. The presumption was if you're a State Department diplomat, you're usually a guy,
Yeah.
and usually you'll bring your wife along, or if you haven't met anyone, you might meet your wife on the way of your travels. And typically, the expectation, it's not the same now, but the expectation is the spouse will kind of just come along. All right.
Yeah.
And there's this group when we were in India. It's called Ladies Who Lunch, and they just kept inviting me to it because it's basically spouses, right? The
Yeah.
spouses used to be called trailing spouses, but they found that term like weird and like kind of like old fashioned. It's like kind of Stepford Wivesy, so they switched it to EFMs, which is eligible family members. So as an EFM, there's still some not unreasonable belief that we probably won't have a job or we'll have some kind of like some smaller role in the embassy. So for me, it's unusual because I'm coming in with a different skill set, and especially with medicine, it's a portable career. So
Yeah.
I'm able to find a career either with the embassy or something just tangential to help find work for me. But it is refreshing every single time, like literally refreshing. Like I have to find a new position or find a new role. So on one hand, when I first started, I'm like, I always knew where I wanted to go. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do this residency. I'm going to do
Yeah.
this work at this a clinic afterwards. And now I'm used to the fact that every few years it's like just a free fall. You find something else, or you don't, or you just kind of figure it out. And I've gotten used to that. It's not for everyone, but I find it a built-in way to prevent burnout.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes, and We know that transitions are a risk factor for burnout. So
Yeah.
um, I'm going to circle back to that question,
Sure.
but I'd love to know because I bet you have, whether you know it or not, a lot of wisdom of burnout prevention in the fact that you have to keep adapting,
I
you
think
know?
so. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about them more. I mean, basically, um, I mentioned this. I was talking with Dr. Mel Thacker, and
Yeah.
I was mentioning how, when you're on med school rotations or residency rotations, you can have a really really good one, or you can have a really really bad one. The bad ones, often for me, what was saving my mental space was the idea that, okay, if it's really bad, I have a few more weeks or maybe like a month more of this.
Mm,
Um, I haven't gotten to that point yet with my jobs, but there was this sense that I probably didn't even allow myself to start thinking about that because I knew there was
yeah.
that escape plan, for lack of a better term, and so it allowed me weirdly to say, okay, you always kind of know where that end point is, or you have an idea. Maybe it's 2 years, 3 years. And
Mm,
so it helped me adapt and shift kind of what I wanted to do. What could I possibly get done in 1 year or 3 years? And should I get upset if I can't get this done? Do I need to ramp up or pull back?
yeah.
And then it's all on this kind of like very, very specific timeline. I found for my friends who stayed in one career, sometimes they were really, really good at it. I mean, they did really, really well by it. But other times, because we were so used to that next step in our education and training, once they got to that level of attending or post
Yeah.
fellowship, there was like this long road ahead of them that a lot of people have to face much earlier in their life, and they just had to deal with it right then. And I have not faced that because I've just known that I don't know what the next what's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years. So for
Yeah.
me, it works again, but for some people, it might not work. But I found that's been a little bit of a good way to frame my medical experiences anyway.
Nice. Yeah. And I can see it being protective against,
Sure.
especially if someone's like, I think a major piece of how people can get to like a burnout is if they feel trapped in whatever's happening.
Correct. Correct.
And
Yeah.
yours, you have like the sort of physical reminder of like, no matter what, I'm
That's right.
not gonna be trapped. I'm
That's
moving on to the
right. You
next
can't
thing.
trap me no
You
matter
can't trap
what.
me. I'm like literally leaving the country. Thank
That's
you.
That's right. And the funniest thing is we have like built-in timelines for especially when we're overseas. So in Russia we have like a strict visa and it's like we have to get out of the country or like face serious consequences by the end of July. So it's like
Okay.
even if some employer, I'm not knocking the US government, but like, if some employer was like, no, you should stay a little bit longer, it's like you can't. There's
Right.
no choice,
Nope.
and there's a little bit of freedom there. There's like you can avoid all those kind of awkward conversations that can happen at the end of your tenure at a job.
Right. It's not
Yeah,
you, it's
yeah,
the government.
that's right. That's right. What can I say?
It's my citizenship, so see
That's
ya.
right.
Well, I'd love to go back to the origin story.
Yeah,
Comic books,
yeah,
like origin story is the best part.
sure.
Like, where are you originally from? What
Yeah,
was your road like into medicine? I'd love
sure.
to hear.
So I was born in Reseda, California, so San Fernando Valley, if you know the area. My parents are both Filipino immigrants. They had met in the United States in California, and so all of us, my siblings and I were born in California. And then pretty early on, so I was in third grade going into fourth grade, we all moved to Massachusetts. There were a number of different factors for why that happened, but the principal one was the stock market crash of 1987 kind of wiped out like all of our savings. It was like very financially ruinous for us. And so my dad had found it was like a confluence of things. My dad had found a job opportunity at Prudential in Massachusetts. My sister had just gotten into BU. My poor sister, I'll tell you about her in a second, because she wanted to have this college experience where she was getting away from us, and we all went with her. Um, and then my dad had read this article. This is like pretty wonky for like public schools. My dad had read this article in a newspaper and it was talking about this school in Boston called the Boston Latin School. At that time, it was considered one of the top high schools in the country, and he said we have to go to Boston because this school is free. You just have to take a test and you get in. It's called a magnet school in the United States. And so all this happened kind of at the same time. We were not doing well financially in California. We were living with my grandparents at the time. All of us in this tiny, like 1,200 square foot house. And so we all left at the same time. We all moved. We drove in this tiny Chrysler minivan across the United States to Massachusetts. My poor sister was like, she's like, okay. So she's still living with us. We're in this one bedroom apartment in Mansfield,
Oh
Massachusetts. It's
my.
a suburb of Massachusetts, of Boston, and my sister had to commute to Boston like 45 minutes by train every day, but it was the best thing for us. Okay, I if I had grown up in California, I don't know what would have happened, but this was formative in a number of ways. The first was, so we were on welfare when we were in California, we were on welfare when we were in Massachusetts, and the difference in healthcare that you got was massive. Okay, even though it's the same welfare system, it's Cigna in California and it's Mass Health in Massachusetts. And so my primary care provider, who's our pediatrician, his name's Dr. Peter Barrett, was the one who saw us, and we really felt like even though we didn't have any money, we were being treated the best way we could, right? So they were treating all of us individually. He's practicing really good pediatrics, but also kind of family medicine in that way. And after that, kind of the idea in my head, the idea that got in my head was, if I ever wanted to become like a doctor, I would want to be exactly like Dr. Peter Barrett. But
Nice.
I kind of went to the wayside a little bit as I was growing up. I've always loved drawing, so I've loved drawing since I was in second grade. And so I was in third grade, and our teacher did one of those "What do you want to be when you grow up?" things. A lot of kids have those exercises, and my third grade teacher, Miss Brunkella, said, "Okay, write down what you want to be." And I wrote down in third grade that I want to be married and have a family. I want to be a doctor, and I want to be a comic book artist. So that was like, if I could be those three things, I'd be a really happy person in my head, in my third grade head. So when it came to Massachusetts, I started going through, and I thought medicine was just like something I was sort of interested in. But as I got older, I got more interested in lab research. And a lot of people who were interested in science go into lab research. Started working with this fantastic lab through high school and the end of high school, and then I continued working for that lab as they lost funding and they started going from grant to grant and missing their grants. And I realized I loved working with my PI. His name's Mark Maiden, but I hated lab research. Like, I just loved working with him. I worked with another lab. I'm like, maybe I can recreate that magic. It was horrible. I worked in another lab in college, and it was just people were miserable. The PI was just writing papers, wasn't even talking to anyone. So I went back to medicine and the idea of pursuing medicine, and I kind of stuck with that. Stuck with my comic work. I was doing illustration for independent comics, independent magazines. I was doing work for school, and so all these things were kind of happening at the same time.
Yeah.
When I got to college, I was doing everything at the same time. I was really, really happy, but I kind of had to make a decision towards the end of college because I wanted to apply to med school, and I had to put drawing on the back burner. And so what has happened since then is always that same kind of routine. If I'm putting more effort into one more time in one, the other has to take a step back. But because of the nature of how kind of unstable or unpredictable my career is, there's going to be a drop in my medical work, and then I
Yeah.
start doing more artwork, and so it's allowed me like all these like cracks in employment. You look at my resume, it's like what is going on, but that has allowed me to do all these other things as there's this sort of push pull between the two. So I wish I could say I'm one of those people who just figured it out. I've been doing this long enough, and I split it perfectly down the middle, and I do this on this day and this on the other day. It's really not like that. It's just like one ramps up, the other ramps down, and vice versa. And it all just depends on whatever is going on at that exact moment.
Wow. I know you're saying yes, you don't have the exact plan. You're not like, here's what my schedule looks like and it's always the same.
Yeah.
And like you had like a deep connection to what you wanted to do from grade 3.
Yeah, no, it
And
was,
like
yeah, yeah. It was
you
pretty
are
early on,
living
yeah.
your grade 3 dream
Correct.
now.
Correct. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I
Oh
feel
my
very lucky and
gosh.
fortunate for two things. One, that I kind of knew what I always knew what I wanted to do. Always, and I
Yeah.
can say that, and so I'm thankful because it's not something that everyone knows. Certainly
Yes.
not that early on. And the other thing is, my parents were very supportive. Now, tell me if this sounds familiar. Most Asian parents, if they hear I have some interest in an art career, they're like, haha, funny, go into medicine, right? But
Yes.
they were so supportive of both. My mom and dad's one contention was if I was going to do art in any capacity, I take it seriously and really, really do it. And so when I started, like, I was in like fifth grade and I'm drawing in my sketchbook, and my dad was like, "You can't present your art this way. You have to get a portfolio, right?" So we'd like save
Ah,
up and like get a portfolio, cut things down and mat them. He's like you got to start pitching, and so I says pitch to like comic companies and magazines and stuff. And so like I'm thankful that my parents were not only supportive but really said, if you're going to do it seriously, and they didn't just try and dismiss it. So like for people who go into art and they have to struggle with family or friends who are not supportive, I'm thankful that I did not have to deal with that. I've always felt like I've had a lot of support.
yeah. They did, if anything, the intense Asian parenting
A
in
hundred
support
percent.
of
That's right. They're like, you do it now.
you're gonna
This
do
is
it.
that's tiger
100%.
parenting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that shows. I mean, sometimes like the tiger parenting gets a bad rap, and of course there's versions of it that are a bad
Right.
fit or extreme. But like fiercely encouraging your child to be
Sure.
their fullest expression of
For
something
sure.
they're saying they're interested in.
For
Like,
sure.
how beautiful is that
It
actually?
it really is fantastic, and there are parts of that certainly I would want to emulate with my own kids. I've a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old daughter, and I don't know what they're going to be into. My
Yeah.
wife and I are going to introduce them to our interests, but if they're not, whatever they're into, I will want to take that similar approach to say that we'll support you, but you have to, put your heart and soul into it.
Yeah, and follow through.
That's right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know we have. I have a 4 and a 7-year-old,
Oh, nice.
2 boys,
Yeah.
and so they're getting to an age where they are starting to express interest in things.
Yeah.
And like so far, like the specific rule is like if you sign up for an activity, you do have to do it all the way to the end.
Correct.
Like
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
you
Can't give
said
up
you were
right away.
interested, and then if you hate it all the way through, then that's actually really good information.
Right.
You really made sure you hated it,
Right,
and then we'll
right.
never do it again. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
how can you know? Because sometimes it's just the discomfort of something new, but then you end
Correct.
up loving it. Like a little
Right.
stick-to-itiveness is needed.
For sure,
You know?
for sure. And like you said, kind of this idea of like whatever you want to go into, whether it's medicine or art, you have to be able to go through the doldrums of it, right? So I remember when we were kind of like going through med school rotations, and then at the end, they were trying to introduce us to some specialties or internal medicine so that we could see what the lifestyle was like. And one of the attendings who was kind of showing us around is like, I want you guys to stay for multiple days so you could see what the normal day is like, the administrative work, to see what it's like for the lunch break and things like that, because that's what you need to be able to sit through and get through if you're going to be interested in something. It's not just like going into the operating theater, right? It's the clinic and vice versa. So I think that holds for kids' interests or any kind of things you want to pursue.
Yeah. So then for you, I know especially, I guess I don't fully know what it's like for family medicine and primary care in the States right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I guess currently you don't know either because you are in Russia. But
Yeah.
certainly
Yeah.
in Canada where I am,
Yeah.
a bit, like many parts of healthcare, primary care is struggling, and
Yeah.
there is specifically an issue where not as many young learners want to go into family medicine, and there's a bit even sometimes some family physicians have taken the political slant of like learners don't go into our profession until the government fixes it. Like anyway, it's a bit of a mess to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And so I don't. When you first signed up for family medicine, perhaps it was a different climate. But considering all that family medicine holds, which includes actually the best stuff, in my opinion,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
biased, but
Yeah.
also some hard stuff, some
Sure.
paperwork stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What drew you to family medicine?
So I love kind of figuring things out with people. So I love talking to people. I realized that one of my aversions to lab medicine, to lab study and laboratory research was you're not really interacting with kind of the science that you're affecting on the world. Whereas like for medicine, certainly you can interact with people, but in particular, the primary care side, you are getting to know people for family medicine longitudinally. You're getting to know them for a long time. You're seeing them through a lot of things. You develop a shorthand with that patient, and you relate to them mostly through language, right? So as much as I like doing procedures and some of the more technical aspects of it. I really, really just like talking to people and
Yeah.
figuring things out and being able to explain it. And when I really, really know something, I'm able to explain it to people of all different levels of understanding. And that is the most exciting to me because whether it's teaching a patient or teaching a student, it's being able to illuminate an idea is very, very exciting to me. Now,
Yeah.
that said, that's the purest idea of it, right? Primary care in the U.S. is an absolute mess. Okay, so we're
Yeah.
we're probably talking the same language. When I joined, when I applied for family medicine for residency, it was still kind of emerging from the depths. It was like in a swamp. It was like this time. It was this time capsule where like people only practiced family medicine in small rural communities. It was only done like in the 60s and 70s, and it had been retired because everyone was just going to managed care, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then it started resurrecting from the dead. So I'm applying for residencies in the early 2000s, and people are starting to get the idea like, what's family medicine? It's like, oh yeah, it's the old idea of like the country doc who would kind of treat all sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's still, I think they have a problem in the United States with branding, okay?
Mm.
Because so for instance, this is a perfect plug for my comic, okay? So I'm working on this graphic novel, okay? It's called
Yes.
Precipitated Withdrawal. It relates to the time that I worked in addiction medicine. And I talk about all these different aspects of primary care that I think a lot of people don't realize fall under the umbrella of primary care. And so one of the things I ask people is what is primary care? I ask doctors and I ask people who are not in healthcare, and they can't define it. It's a really bad branding issue,
Yes.
and I don't know if it's the same
Yes.
in Canada.
I would
Um,
agree.
okay, so because of that, I mean, how are you going to get people to go into radiology? You know exactly what it is, okay?
Yeah.
Neurosurgery, you know what it is. I don't think people know what it is. They do know there's a need for it, but people have shifted their habits not unreasonably to accommodate the fact that there's not enough primary care in the United States. So their primary care provider is the urgent care clinic at CVS. It's the emergency department, right? The poor overstressed emergency department. So I think aside from all the other ways we can approach this, if you want to get more people into primary care in the United States anyway, there's two things: rebranding to get people excited about what it offers, and two, you just got to pay people more money. I mean, like
Yeah.
that's the long and short of it. I mean,
Mhm.
we can figure out all the nuances of does that mean more debt relief or whatever, but the more you pay people, the more they're going to go into it, and that's just I don't know how that looks in the United States, but that's a factor for sure in getting people there.
Yeah. And isn't there not, well, maybe it depends on the part of the country, but one thing that's like a functional aspect of how primary care works in Canada, and
Yeah,
especially in Ontario, I know it best, that's the province I live in,
nice.
um, where you cannot see a specialist except if you've seen your primary care physician first, other than if you've gone through the hospital, like you're sick enough to go through there.
Correct. Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that,
So
but is that the case in the
it's not
States?
always the case. So
Okay.
it depends on your insurance product or if you're covered by
Okay.
Medicare or Medicaid. So sometimes, if you have like a really beefed up health insurance, sometimes you can go straight to an in-network specialist of a certain level.
Okay.
If it's someone like subspecialty or super subspecialty, then for sure you're going to need a referral from a primary care provider. But even that system gets overstressed. I'm sure you're the same way where it's like people need to wait X number of weeks or months to get to see you and
Yeah.
just to see someone else. And that's happening a lot in the US still.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
not necessarily like I really resonate with what you just said about relating to people through language. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna put that in my pocket because that is, I really love that as a way of explaining what primary care is.
Yeah.
It's so relational
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
all about communication and
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when sometimes you feel like you're just like the lobby to the good stuff on the inside.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
You're the
Welcome.
gatekeeper. Thank
Come
you
on
so much.
in.
And you're like, you don't want to see me at
No,
all.
no, correct.
You're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
putting
Yeah.
in your order so you can get the
That's
real
right.
item off the menu. And
That's
that
right.
doesn't feel very nice.
It can feel icky, but I do like to imagine on some level that I'm advocating for the patient, obviously. So I'm
Sure.
I'll often act as what I like to call a medical interpreter. Not a literal medical
Yes.
interpreter like speaking another language, but I'll have them come back and bring their specialist report, their radiology read to me, and I'll go through and I'll draw pictures and I'll say, this is what this person is saying, this is what they mean, this is the term. Patients
Yeah.
have rights to these very technical documents, but they don't know what it means, and nor should they. And I want them to trust me enough to say, whatever happens, tell me. Part of the way that I approach that is I mean, you should always be honest with your patients, but I'm brutally honest when I know something, don't know something, and then certainly when I've made a mistake. I
Mm.
have really, all of us have made like really, really kind of like serious mistakes or errors with our
Yeah.
patients, and they really, to a person, have always appreciated when I say up front, I totally messed up on this. Here's the reason why, and then they're able to come to me afterwards and bring to me all these other information because they know I'll tell them if something is working, is not working, or if we need to go another route.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is such an essential skill
Yeah.
that I feel like I had to kind of learn slowly over time.
Sure.
Because when I
Yeah.
first came out and like out of residency and practice, I was like, I'm supposed to pretend I know all the answers
Everything and never get it wrong, right? You're
and
supposed to get
never get
100
it
on the
wrong.
test, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But I found, and you've probably found too in your practice, they tend to respect you the more that they know you, and then certainly when you've crossed that Rubicon and you said, this is where I've made an error, but here's where we can go, or
Yeah.
even if you're figuring out together actively, I think that engenders a lot of trust in the patient or the client you're seeing.
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm curious how the luggage got into
Okay.
this whole
Okay.
situation.
So it's it's not a long story for me, but it can be a long story if you're not really into this stuff. So I'll try and streamline it.
Yeah.
Basically, what happened was when we were living in Bosnia Herzegovina in 2014. Okay, no, I'll back up. All right. When I was in at the end of med school and during residency, so I'm of the belief that there are two kinds of people in the world. There are people who collect things and people who don't collect things. I am a collector. I'll collect anything, right? And I love old things. I love old
Mm.
cameras. I love old cars, old watches. And so I really, really love old luggages. It's partly because I think they look so beautiful, but then also I'm kind of obsessed with packing and things like that. And so I've always been interested in luggage and in particular vintage luggage. And one of my obsessions was this field of vintage luggage where people would have used to have bespoke trunks made for them, right? So Sir Arthur Conan Doyle famously wrote the Sherlock Holmes series on this traveling trunk that he had. It was a Goyard trunk, and so a trunk opens up. It's got a table, it's got a seat. He has his typewriter, his mini library, and I was like, oh my god, this is like the greatest thing I've ever seen. Right now,
Yeah.
generally, this is the playground of very rich people, so it's just like a pipe dream for most of us. There are a few companies in particular that still do this, and one of them is Goyard. The other is Louis Vuitton, another one's Moynat. So three French companies. They're kind of like the masters of these bespoke trunks. And so I thought to myself, man, if I could just make my own trunk, what would it look like? Just like a pipe dream.
Yeah.
Unprompted, it was just like a fun project, and I just sketched it for just like 16 months or so. And I, on a whim, just thought, what would happen if I just sent it to Goyard and see what they say, and would they make it? And I mentioned this when I was talking to Frances May earlier. I couldn't believe they responded. They were kind of like morbidly curious about what my deal was. Like, are you a designer? Are you French? Like, what's your deal? What's going on here? And it was just that I really, really loved it, and I just took a shot.
Yeah.
And they responded they'd be interested in the project, and we'd work on it together, and develop it into something called a halo piece, which is like a show off piece to show what they can kind of do with luggage making.
Wow.
And since then, I've been working with them as a consultant, doing the same thing, but for other projects. So if someone wants to have a specific trunk or piece of luggage or a bag made for them, sometimes they'll come to me, and then I'll be able to sketch the ideas with them, and then bring that to the design team. So like, It's kind of like entering through the side door. I didn't apply the way that most people do. I didn't apprentice the way most people do. Um, I did this because there was a small gap in between when I arrived in Bosnia, and I was able to travel and meet a few people in France and meet some friends I had established by email. And so all of it kind of came together in this small gap, and that's when I really started pushing more towards my art, and my medicine took a little bit of a went a little bit to the back burner. So that's one of those examples of me kind of slipping one thing in when the other is kind of lying dormant. But yeah, so
Yeah.
I had an interest in it. The market was right, I guess, at that time. They just didn't have any kind of position like that that existed, so I was able to kind of create it, and then since then I've just been able to. It's like a great excuse to just keep going back to Paris and like eat all these
Oh, it's
fancy
such a hard
meal.
life. Yes.
Oh God, I have to go to. Sorry guys, I'm going to Paris to meet my friends. I have to do some design work for like. And like by the
Sure.
way, it's all like the a real stereotype. It's like Emily in Paris shit, right? So it's like you're going there and like when you have meetings, they have like these macarons laying around, they
Oh,
have coffee, you're sitting around with these extravagant dinners. Um, I got to go to the
wow.
factory where they make these trunks in Carcassonne, which is like this sleepy like magical castle like village in France near Strasbourg, and they set out this beautiful lunch for me, and like they took me through the workshops and factories. So like I won't even pretend like it's not as awesome. It is so awesome, but it's kind of like this
It
little
is.
this nice little niche that I have, like just some
Yeah.
other little kind of like fantasy world I can escape to every now and then. It's just like a fun pursuit, you know.
Do you have one of the trunks then?
Yes. So what happens is the artist trunk they gave to me to kind of act as like an ambassador for the brand. And so I've
Yeah.
been to a few different places. Went to this really beautiful town in France called Agenau, and this is like real nerdy stuff. But if you love trunks and if you love vintage trunks, Agenau is like the capital of trunk collecting. You got people from all over the world who come here. There's a museum devoted to it, and there's like
Oh.
this master restorer named Jean-Philippe Roland. I'm like, oh, I have to talk to Jean-Philippe today, and my wife's like, all right, knock it off, right? But you go there, or I've been there, and I was talking about this trunk and talking about Goyard's work, and these people are really, really into this. And so I bring the trunk out. This is in the middle of the town. It was the opening of the museum, so it was not my event. But I brought the trunk. It was in the back of our Toyota Rav4. I opened it up, and all these people started gathering around. I gave like this impromptu a presentation on it. The mayor came out and was like, "What's going on?" Because we like stopped traffic, and I was showing him the trunk. I gave him some gloves so he could see like the hinge work and all this stuff. And I'm like, "This is the greatest. It's like
It's
one of
your
the greatest
peak of
days of
your
my life."
life. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it's all downhill from here. I'm like, it's gonna be a rough ride home because this is really, really the top.
Oh my
They like welcomed
gosh.
me to the city on Twitter, like Ryan, welcome to the city, and like I don't know what was happening, but it all kind of came together. Um,
Yes.
and so I've been able to give talks and presentations again to a willing audience. I'm not forcing anyone to listen to this stuff, but like to talk about that trunk and then kind of like the
Yeah.
process of it and how it's all part of a tradition. Like when I started, I thought, oh man, this is cool. I'm gonna do something really interesting and new. But then as I became more and more aware of Goyard's long history, Louis Vuitton's long history, you see it's just a bunch of stuff repeating over and over again. At first, I was a little depressed because I'm like, man, I thought it was so original. But
Mm.
it's actually kind of endearing to see that you're just part of this really, really long tradition. It's actually really fun to see that. So you'll see
Yeah.
designs that are very similar to the one I made for the artist trunk that had been figured out in the 1700s, early 1800s, but mine's just a different iteration of it. And that to me is
Yeah.
really, really fun and exciting.
That's cool. Okay, I feel like I wrote down old things because in case I wanted to remember, and I want to show you some old things that I have.
Yes,
So, can you see the microscope?
yes,
So that's my grandfather's microscope,
that is amazing. Was he a
and
researcher?
he was a physician. You cannot see his face in these tiny faces, but him and his twin brother are these two
That
fellows up here,
is
class of
incredible.
1951.
I love archival stuff like that.
And then this,
Incredible.
this is actually my husband's. It's an old calculator that his
Yes.
grandfather, who was an accountant,
Oh my
So I just wanted
goodness,
to
I
show.
love it. I love
Yes,
it. It
history.
looks so good. These
Yeah.
old, heavy machines that have lived a life, you can tell.
Yes.
I collect typewriters too. It's the same thing, right?
Cool.
Like you have these really, really, you know, it's analog and like everything that we're kind of doing right now is moving more and more digital. But like to have these things that are really, really tangible is so much fun to me.
Yes.
It makes it it's pushing me more and more towards the category of hoarder. I'm trying to rein it in,
Sure.
but I just love all this. I love it. I love learning about the history of it. I love seeing old photographs, old passports, and things like that. But certainly, old machines hold a special place in my heart. Just like heavy, they like make a noise when you press the
Yes.
buttons, and
You can
yeah,
see the
correct,
machinery of how it
correct.
works.
Yeah. It's
So
amazing.
satisfying. Oh
Yeah.
my
That's
gosh.
great. I'm glad you have those. Those are fantastic heirlooms. My goodness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I actually just got the med school one this weekend from my mom.
Wow. Where was
But
it hiding?
it was hiding in her basement, I think.
Wow.
But I think she knew. Last year on my podcast, I interviewed my great uncle Jack, who's the twin brother of my grandfather. My
Amazing.
grandfather's passed away, but
Yeah.
my great uncle's still alive. He's about to turn 95.
Holy
And
moly.
speaking of the history of medicine,
Yeah.
especially because so I'm fifth generation physician
Wow.
on that side. So he had
Wow.
his what was it? His grandfather. I'm actually forgetting the people.
Yeah.
But like he can speak of going around on call as a child with the other family members who were
Incredible.
like the lineage of
Yeah.
medicine alone. It's
Yeah.
really
It's
cool
deep.
to know. It's deep. Yes.
Yeah. Holy moly. Do you have any other ephemera like old notebooks, rounding notes, anything like
Oh my
that?
gosh,
I
that's
that would
such a
be a
good
treasure.
question.
I don't want you going on a wild goose chase, but I just think that stuff is fascinating.
I
My
would love
my
to know.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
grandfather on my mom's side was an architect and a bridge builder, and
Mm.
you could like we didn't know growing up. We just thought he was really good at drawing and really good at technical artwork. But we found out later he's just like all this stuff, like when he's planning on building bridges, architectural drawings, even just like scrap paper. You can't save it all, but I do love seeing these like physical kind of totems from when he was working. I
Mm.
just really, really love that. So if you ever find those things, I think it'd be really, really special to.
I'm writing
Uh,
I'm writing. I'm making a note. I'm like, oh, notes. Where
you gotta
are
keep me updated. I'd
they?
love to see
I
those
will
things.
email
Oh,
you for
fantastic.
sure.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that's so interesting is then, yeah, so then your passion for drawing,
Hmm.
right? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, so there's one lineage right there
For
through your
sure.
grandfather, right? In a different
Actually,
way.
yeah, I come from a pretty strong line of people who are artistically inclined for visual arts. So first of all, my sister is incredibly artistically talented. Her kind of like focus now is knitting, but she's actually a very, very talented artist. My very talented drawer. My mom, fantastic artist, and she focused on fashion and fashion design when she was younger, and then she majored in art history. My grandfather, again, like so his is like the more technical aspect. I would like to say the goal of any artist is to have like this really really expressive side, but then also like a good mastery of the technical side. And
Mm.
we're always trying to approach that. When I'm doing well on the technical side, I like to think that it's coming from my grandfather, and then the more expressive side, maybe my mom, or things like that. So there's a lineage of that, and then also just for me, it's always been comic books as much as you learn from other art styles. I was introduced to comics very early on. My mom and my grandparents used to get me these thick volumes of the original Ninja Turtles comics from the library. And if you have not read these, they are exceptionally violent. They are not fit for children. They are
Really?
they are
What?
really violent.
I
Okay, so
thought
the
they were just
original.
like eating pizza or
No,
whatever.
no. So,
Oh
like, if you
my
read
gosh.
them, if you ever take a look, so they're written by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, and these guys, they started the comic a little bit as a joke, but it's like, it's got like mugging and like really really violent action, and so these Ninja Turtles are supposed to be like have a real bad attitude and be able to hang out with like how bad these criminals are.
Yeah.
And we were introduced to it at first as a cartoon where everyone's really happy and like things are really bright and stuff. And so
Yes.
my grandparents and my parents are like, "Oh, here are the comics. It's a comics version of." And I'm reading this. I'm like, they have no idea what's inside this, right? Like
Cool.
swears. There was like mentions of like women almost getting raped and stuff like that. It's just like really really out
Grown
there.
up stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very grown up. But the art is incredible. It's just
Mm.
unbelievable. And so anyway, I got these and I just started copying everything I could. And then the other comics I started reading again. My mom thought she was doing right by me because she doesn't understand what's going on in these comics. But I used to read Jim Lee's Punisher. Very violent. This is a guy who was in the Vietnam War. He's got PTSD. He's
Yeah.
shooting out. He vigilante justice. But the art was just incredible, and I started copying that. But from very early on, it was like I love drawing, I love art, but I want to do comics. Like that's what I
Mm.
want to do. And so that's been the major kind of like guiding light throughout my art career is what is going on in comics, who do I want to rip off? What do I want my style to be an amalgamation of? And so it ended up being some of those original guys, and then some of the newer guys, and some of my kind of like all-time idols, all in theory mixed into my style. I mean, that's what I like to think my style is a mix of.
Cool. Who are some of your other idols?
Oof. Okay, so the biggest one in terms of like what he accomplished in comic storytelling is this artist named Will Eisner. He passed away in 2005, but he's considered sort of the godfather of comics and of he invented the long form comic called the graphic novel.
Mm.
As far as personal favorites, my one of my favorite artists, his name's Howard Cruz. He did this comic called Stuck Rubber Baby, and it's my favorite comic of all time. He and I became sort of pen pals. I started writing to him, and we became good friends. And then, at least online, and then he passed away in 2019. But like
Mm.
his art and kind of like his words of encouragement really kind of bolstered uh, my belief that I could keep doing it and pursue it professionally. Paul Chadwick, jeez, I can keep going on. Becky Cloonan, just like so many artists, and like I'll take little bits of everything, I'll copy it, see how I can incorporate, and just plain rip it off, and then if it works, I just keep. You'll see little traces of this of all these artists in my stuff.
That's
Brian
cool.
Boland, yeah, Brian Boland's one of my favorite. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know most of those, or I actually don't know any of those names, but
yeah.
I am getting introduced to graphic novels through my 7-year-old son because
Fantastic.
it's really how he's learned to read. Like,
Oh,
yeah, he
awesome.
learned to read in school, but
Yeah,
then he
yeah.
kept bringing home graphic
It's
novels,
great. It's
and
really great.
his vocabulary is like bonkers because
Yeah.
of it.
Oh,
And like,
that's great.
we've also shown him books that are supposed to be like for grade 1, his age,
Sure,
that
sure.
are no pictures, and he's
Yeah.
like,
I don't
why
know
would
what's
I
going
want to
on
read
here.
that? But he's still learning. So
Yeah.
yes, he's not learning how to read descriptive paragraphs yet, whatever. But he's learning really advanced words.
Yeah, it really activates a different part of your brain, and
Yes.
for people who are learners that way, there's really nothing
Yeah.
else like it. And there are ways. If you're a visual learner, you might remember when you were learning things where something appeared on a page
Mm-hmm.
or on your notes, and comics are accessing like a similar part of that brain where it's like you're not just assigning the words and using your imagination, but you're also assigning like a visual signature to where it is on the page, how it's interacting with the visual art.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Yes.
I hope we got our hooks in your. Is it your nephew you said or
No, my son.
your son? Okay,
Hmm.
I hope we got our hooks in him and
I
it never
know.
lets go.
We'll see. The one we actually, well, two that we ended up just purchasing the whole series, the Bone series.
Yeah, it's
That
incredible. So I got to meet
classic.
Jeff Smith.
Oh wow.
Um, he when Bone came out in the early 90s, it was not like a slow burn. Everyone realized immediately this was Carl Barks plus like amazing storytelling. Everyone knew right away that this was something that no one else could do. The Great Cow Race is one of the funniest stories you will ever read.
It was
And he's
so
dressed as a
good.
cat. Like,
Yes.
it's really, really good, and it's rightfully considered one of the best comics ever made. It's so good. It's
I
really, really good.
didn't get it. Like when he first brought he brought home the second book.
Yeah, yeah,
And so it starts off, and sorry if this is like really inside baseball for
yeah,
people who don't know this, but anyway, I'm talking to you right now. Everyone else
yeah.
can listen. And it's talk, and there's this like black and white cartoony
Yep.
person talking to like a, not too sexualized, a little bit
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
feminized.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, her
Rose.
off
Yeah,
the
yeah.
shoulder dress.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he's explaining Moby Dick to her, and then there's another character, and he's smoking a cigar. So I'm just like, is this appropriate for
Yeah, it's like,
children?
what is going on? Is this getting get weird really
Why
quickly?
is this as
Correct.
elementary school?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then it unfolds, and you're
Correct.
like, oh, I mean, the world building and the narrative of it,
Incredible.
some classic elements, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and really emotional,
Sure,
and
sure. And
yeah,
the humor of the rat creatures, stupid rat creatures,
yes,
is great.
the quiche.
Yeah, it's true. So for anyone listening who has not read it, read it because it is this weird. It's the amazement a lot of people had at the beginning of Pixar's great run, where it's like somehow
Oh,
it is for adults and kids and
yes,
Universal, and then only after you've seen it and enjoyed it do you realize just how hard it is to pull off what Jeff Smith pulled off. I mean, this is an
yes,
independent comics artist who's doing it all on his own. This is not a studio,
wow,
and to see that, we knew it was amazing in the 90s, we knew it was amazing in the early 2000s, but now 20, 30 years on, I just can't believe he was able to do it. And it's like a huge story. You can get the entire thing in like
yes.
one book now. And I love it. I still reread it. I hope when my kids start reading, they're going to start reading
Oh
that
yeah,
too. Yeah,
we got
yeah.
the box set, and both my 4-year-old too. He's like, let's read through it, and like I
It's
think
so
just
good.
the pictures with it, it's so
Yep.
fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
getting back to your art, so
Yeah.
so what is it that you are working on or want to share that you've
Yeah.
created?
So I'm working on my first graphic novel again. It's called Precipitated Withdrawal, and this is born of my experiences in med school and residency. I do like the idea that it's becoming more common now to hear people in med school or residency have different outlets to tell their stories, whether it's writing papers, doing comics, poetry, etc. But when I was in med school, they just didn't really do that stuff. They didn't really have outlets for it. But I'm a big journaler. I journal all the time. I've
Yeah,
been
same.
journaling since I was in like, okay, so as a fellow journaler, you'll understand it's like these ideas exist here. Sometimes they exist just on the journal page, but I felt like there was another way I needed to express it because there was a universality about some of the things I was dealing with, not just within the world of medicine, but just in general, just like human experiences. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to make my great big kind of like treatise or manifesto on primary care. What do I want to say about it? I complain that people don't know what it is. Why don't I explain what it is, okay, and introduce some of the problems and challenges and maybe some of the solutions. And so what I did was I took all my different experiences, I just listed them out in this really messy list, and then I'm like, how can I make a story out of like 10 or 12 chapters? Started grouping them into similar ideas. And so now the book, as it will come out, is 12 chapters, each one devoted to a specific topic in primary care that a lot of people outside of medicine might not know about. So, for instance, I just finished one earlier this year about how to pronounce someone dead, because I mean, this is
Yeah.
something that you think is just someone's dead, you pronounce him dead, case closed, right? But there's a lot to it, right? If you work in hospital medicine, what is their definition of dead? It depends hospital to hospital in the United States. I didn't even talk about, but there's like definitions of brain death, et cetera, et cetera. But like I wanted to talk about the actual process, like you pronounce, you fill out the death certificate. Is there any gray area? I always found that gray area kind of haunting. And
Yes.
so I want each one of these chapters to be something that will at least pique someone's interest and ask some questions about what they think about primary care or medicine, and then maybe come up with ideas on their own or with their healthcare provider. The focus, the nidus of the whole thing is my experience in addiction medicine. So all of them kind of end up coming back to this idea of addiction medicine, this multimodal problem in the United States, and how it'll take a specialty like family medicine that has all these different resources to kind of address it. And not for nothing, I want it to be something that I'm proud of in terms of like visual representation. So I was trained to draw superhero comics. I was trained to with like a lot of formal art education. I wanted the comic to be stylized in a way that it looks like comics, but have a lot of kind of like serious art to it. Whereas I feel like a lot of times when these subjects are being approached, they're approached with kind of like a soft touch because people want it to be more inviting. I actually find that that's not the approach I wanted to take. I want it to be as kind of like graphic and like intense as I feel the
Yeah.
subject is. It's not going to be for everyone. I think the marketer for this book is going to have a hell of a job because it's going to be, it's like a niche of a niche of a niche, and it's like uninviting, and like there's swear words and stuff like that. But I wanted it to be a comic that I really, really would want someone else to make, and I would be interested in reading.
Yeah.
And then whether or not it's successful is not up to me. It's certainly up to the audience. But that's my goal with this book.
Cool. I can see. So, I mean, I'm like, I'm interested in a graphic novel that would potentially reflect my experience
Yeah.
as a family physician. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly,
And then
yeah.
perhaps those that also then have been patients receiving care
Sure.
of that kind, especially where they really want to see the actual intensity, the actual
Right,
complexity
Yeah,
and
yeah.
messiness
Sure.
reflected.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree with you, and I hope people can see something that they're interested in, whether they're a patient or someone in the healthcare field. I have this one
yeah.
topic, this one chapter about informed consent, which is like this really kind of esoteric idea. And
Yeah.
I was talking to my editor, and she's like, "This is going to be so boring, right?" And I'm like, "No, no, I promise, I'll make it captivating." And my argument, at least in American medicine, is I didn't quantify a number, but most people, I don't believe, can truly give informed consent because doctors are so bad at explaining what they're doing and what is going on. So if they are, you can't be informed. That's the
Yeah.
crux of it. And the story that I used to introduce that idea is that my dad, got his PSA checked too early and it's high, so he had to go through all these like biopsies and
Oh.
stuff like that. He's doing fine, but this was right at that stage in the United States when we were switching the recommendations of PSA checking from like a B recommendation to, oh, talk about it with your provider and see if it's right for you, because should we be doing all these biopsies and checks so early on?
Wow.
And it's like a really complicated idea, and I'm like,
Yes.
maybe I can tell a story. I think it's a little messy, but it's because the topic's so messy. But I wanted to introduce it to people so that they at least start thinking about it, and maybe glean something from the
Yes.
chapter.
Okay, I feel like we could have a whole second conversation about that. So, but I'm just like looking at
Yeah.
the time. But like, I do think about that all the time. Of like, and I'm like, I'll say to patients, I'm like, here's my spiel, and then after
Yeah.
they're like, thanks for coming to my TED talk. But I'm like, how much of the nuance that's important to
Sure.
communicate,
Yeah.
especially around these like lab values.
For
PSA
sure.
being a really funny one. Cholesterol.
Yep.
Don't
Yep.
get this podcast has heard lots about my cholesterol topic. Anyway, but like,
Yeah.
and so then patients are just like, well, am I healthy or not healthy, doc? Or what should
And
I do?
you're
And
like,
you're like,
no, no.
listen, there are
Yeah.
layers I have to explain to you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, sometimes it's eyes glaze over, and you're like, okay, I roll it back. How do I?
Right.
But
Right.
sometimes people they need it, and they're
Sure.
following along.
Sure.
And I just would love to be a part of conversations where we're talking about how can we pretend we're not actually talking about straightforward things here.
No,
And
exactly.
people who pretend, you're like, well, obviously, like someone
Yeah.
very confidently is like, everyone needs their PSA checked at blah age. I'm like, what are you saying? What?
Yeah.
Why are you saying that?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
stop talking with confidence.
That's right, and it's that balance, right? Because we've been told one way or another. We've been told either patients respond to people who
Yes.
are confident and
Sure.
and deal with black and white, but if we know that's not the case, we have to figure out where that line is and like kind of how we
Yeah.
tailor it to patients. And I find that fascinating. I think most primary care providers should find that fascinating, but sometimes this just depends on if you have enough time, if
Of course,
if your
yes.
patient, if where your patient's at, if they're like pre contemplative about something, you're
Yeah.
like, okay, this is a conversation
mind.
for later. Yeah. Yeah.
Pin in it. Yeah, it's very like
Yeah.
not even choose your battles because you're not in
Yeah.
a battle, but yeah, choose where the energy expenditure
Exactly.
is, and
Yeah,
when it's
yeah.
like here's the fuller answer to that, and
Right.
here's the shorter answer.
Right.
But it is important to recognize the gray. So I love when people are like, here's the gray
No,
in medicine.
exactly. And it's interesting, and I think it helps us suss out a lot of problems instead of just pretending like, obviously, the gray area doesn't exist. And
Yeah.
I find those ideas compelling. It sounds like you do too. And
Yeah.
so those are some of the things I'm trying to do with those comics. The other thing is I'm also working on some independent comics that I work on with collaborators, and that's something that's always kind of humming in the background. As much as it's fun to work on a long form thing, you can kind of get lost, and you're like, you're your only person. You're sitting in an office
Yeah.
and you're not talking to anyone. So working on these smaller projects just to give a little boost is something that's really really helpful as well.
Cool. Oh my gosh. Okay, I really could talk to you for multiple more hours, but like I said, I had to cut myself off in
That's
60
right.
minutes. I gotta
That's
stop.
right.
Thank you for everything you shared. I want to name some themes I heard in your story that I think, because there might be, if anyone's listening, they're like, oh, I don't have such an like sometimes when we listen to each other's stories, we do that comparison as the thief of joy, whatever. So I
I do
just
it
like
too.
to
I do it
name
too. Yeah, yeah.
and say, okay, maybe you all aren't going to be a luggage designer and a graphic artist or whatever, but like, even do you want to be? I mean, maybe, but also probably not. Like,
Correct.
but what I hear that's universal in your story is having beautiful support to connect with and thrive in what you love. And that is an opportunity we all have, even if it's that as adults we give that to ourselves rather
Yes.
than
Yeah.
childhood. It can happen at different stages for different people.
Yes.
And then not only creating space for what you want, but also taking advantage of the spaces as they come up, like that dance, and not
Yeah.
thinking it has to look one way, but being,
Yeah.
I know what I love, and when life allows and slash when I create space for it,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let go of a part of me. I'm gonna allow the fulsome of who I am to be expressed in my life.
Yes. That's perfectly said.
And I am very here for that.
No, I think I couldn't have said it any better. And you have to understand, or anyone who's listening, if they think if they're going along the track of comparing. I do that all the time, and I actually have to limit some of my time online because I'll just start scrolling, and I'm like, what is going on? How am
Yeah.
I jealous of X or Y?
Yes.
So certainly, I wouldn't want anything that I said or we said on this to inspire that kind of thought. But I will say that one of the things when I was growing up, I had a plan. My parents had a plan. We had to work, and all sorts of things happened. Right, so the stock market crash, this 9/11, the housing crisis in the United States, et cetera, et cetera. And each time, even if I was very very young, or when I became an adult, it became obvious to me that there are plenty of things I can't control, and it became easier afterwards after I started moving out of the country to realize that okay, I do not have a plan, but I'll probably figure out something, right? My grandfather had said at one point, you want to be educated enough to write your own ticket. And what I believe he meant by that is, he understood that ascendancy in the United States is largely linked to either you come from a rich family or you are well educated. And the idea is, do I have the ability and do I have at least a basic toolbox to be able to do whatever I want? Some of that is a position of privilege, I understand. I got a lot of educational opportunities and parents who supported me, so that's an advantage in and of itself. But that said, I only started doing this kind of like wandering, like Jack Kerouac style, like I'll do this and maybe I'll do that. That is not something that I am not that guy. I did not start out that way. It happened, and I've become more and more comfortable with that idea. And that's what's helped me out is just the idea that okay, I don't know what's going to happen in a few years. I'll figure it out. But that's for anyone who's listening. Is like, well, I'm not like that at all. I wasn't either. But it's something
Yes.
that is definitely a trait that you can develop very easily, I think.
Yeah, it's actually not a personality trait. I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah,
a bit of a practice,
yeah,
just being
yeah.
and going for what you want enough times to get some evidence that it's worth it,
Correct. Yeah.
right?
You have data. You have a data set to back it up.
Yeah. And at first you do not know. Like when you sent off
Correct.
that sketch, you're like,
Correct, yeah.
Well, that was
And
fun.
yeah, yeah. And when I moved overseas for the first time, by the way, that was the first time my wife and I lived together. So it was like a real bold
Oh
experiment.
my gosh.
We were long distance for like 9 years. Okay, my wife was did her master's in Scotland while I was in
Oh
Massachusetts. She
wow.
was living in New York, and then we kept getting closer and closer. And then she gets into the foreign service. She moves to Bosnia before me, and so there was a lot of stuff in the air when I first moved. I'm like, oh
Wow.
my God, this is either going to be awesome or the worst mistake of my
Yes.
life. I'm thankful it worked out, but again, it was something where it felt like a big leap in the beginning, and now it doesn't feel like much of a leap at all. It's just kind of like what it is now.
That Okay, your story is really fun though. It's so many
That's
fun
sweet.
elements to it. Oh, and I'm just picturing your two girls like traveling the world with you
They
now, and how
so
cool is that?
they're I don't know if they're the older one is definitely starting to form some memories that attach to this place. So
Mm,
it's going to be tough thinking about like kind of like resting her from these different areas, but I also think about when I was growing up, by the time I got to seventh grade, I was in 8 different schools, and so we like moved around a lot. Uh, it was it was not easy, but
yeah,
I don't believe that this is the kind of thing that has to be a destructive force, especially because they're getting a chance to see the world.
yeah,
I think it can be very, very beneficial to them. And like we find a lot of kids who grew up in the foreign service, they're very well adapted. They understand
yeah.
to a great extent what is out there, and I want that for my kids. Even if they don't want to do this for their life, I want them to know what's out there so that if they want to stay in one place, they'll have the information to make that decision.
They won't feel trapped either. Ah, full
Correct.
circle.
Yeah,
Hello.
yeah,
That's so
that's
good.
right.
Okay, so if people want to connect with you or find your work, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Ryan underscore Montoya underscore art. If you look up Boston Congress of Public Health, you can find my page there, and that actually has preview comics of some of the stuff that I published before and some of the stuff that's going to come out in this comic. And then, you're going to see little pieces of my comics with other authors or things like that. I work with a group called Graphic Medicine, and they really are just folks who are obsessed with comics about medicine. My comic obviously fits in this group, and so we do all sorts of fun stuff. We teach people about graphic medicine. We write reviews, and then not for nothing, there's these big conferences that take place in these really beautiful locations, and we just nerd out about it. We meet people, and I meet other creators that way. So it's a fantastic kind of like networking and just like sharing in our passion for the topic.
So fun. Oh my
It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
gosh. Well, thank you for sharing so much of your story today with
No,
everyone.
this was a pleasure. This is really fun.
Yay. And for those listening, I really invite you to like connect with, yeah, like what did you want to do in grade 3?
For sure.
And even if the format of it isn't what you'd want to do now,
Yeah.
like but what was it about that? There's something about those early dreams. And
Sure.
if you feel very far from like what's like a step you can take in the direction of that? Because I
Sure.
believe it's never too late to start really going for like what you clearly actually are passionate about at your core, and you can do
Yeah.
it within medicine and outside of medicine. That's
Absolutely.
what your story teaches.
I agree with that, and even if it's something not as early as your third grade or something from a few years ago, I also say this. I One of the more daunting parts of art is getting. Art is a very vulnerable act, right? You're writing something, you're drawing something, and the vulnerable part in particular is if you're having that critiqued by someone you respect or someone you admire. And so we have these portfolio reviews. You put your portfolio out there, and sometimes you could just get eviscerated, right? It's really, really tough.
Yeah.
What I tell people is I have so many interests, so many things I really, really love. And if you look at my inbox or sent emails or messages, there's just a whole train of rejections for all sorts of
Mm.
reasons. Okay, they're reasonable, by the way. Like it's not like these people are trying to hold me back. No, it's just I'm not right for the job or whatever. I didn't pitch myself correctly, and so I want people to both be to have a skin thick enough to be able to withstand just rejection or things not working out, but also not so thick that they don't let the actual constructive comments come through. And that's something I'm still figuring out. But for anyone who's in a pursuit that involves whether it's gatekeeping or people who have to decide on your work whether it's good or not or bad or not. Be comfortable with the idea that you just keep going, even if you're dealing with a lot of rejection, because it's tough if it starts piling on, but it's all part of the process.
Yeah, keep going.
That's right.
So good. All right. Well, thanks again, Ryan. And for everyone listening, we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
I would love to take this work deeper with you. Visit joanchanmd.com today and discover my growing menu of options for restorative medical education to suit your learning needs. I offer one-on-one coaching, customized workshops, and self-study courses that allow you to connect not only with my work on a deeper level, but also with other healthcare humans just like you. So if you want to start humanizing your work in healthcare to a deeper level and do it in community with others, please visit joanchanmd.com and find those options and what fits you and your life today.